Let's talk about sex, baby. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I'm going to talk about how sex and sexual energy is portrayed and manipulated in our society. Big topic. This was actually highly requested. I brought this up and asked if people wanted me to talk more about this, and a lot of people were like, yes, we want you to talk more about this. So finally going to talk about this highly controversial subject. I was actually reading in a book, I believe this was a book by Esther Perel, and it was just something that was like a real wake-up call for me, where she was essentially talking about the idea that in our society, and I'm talking more, I mean, I'm from the United States, so I'm really talking about more of like our Western society. That's what I'm more familiar with. Even with our very promiscuous, like open-minded idea of sex and sexuality, we still have a very puritanical view of sex and sexuality. As much as we kind of try to deny it, and that is shifting and changing, but we are still very rooted in a lot of puritanical values. Religion is still a big deal in our society, so we have this very like, sex is wrong, sex is shameful, sex is dirty, like a seedy back alley kind of thing you don't want to talk about. That just sounded really dirty and I didn't mean that to be. Anyway, in contrast, we also use sex to sell everything. We use sex to sell trash bags. I saw a really highly sexual trash bag commercial the other day and I was like, what? I mean, like, we literally use sex to sell everything. Sex is used to make money in Hollywood. It's used to make money in just in every area of life, right? So as a result, sex is something that everybody is being told that they're having all the time, but like, it's wrong for you to want to have it, right? So you get that real conflict in people of like, oh, everybody's doing it, but it's wrong if you do it, like that kind of thing. Really screws up our brains, and it really takes this thing that is so natural and so beautiful. Every single human on this planet is here because two people had sex and made a baby. I mean, like, it's the birth of new life. I mean, there's so many amazing sacred healing aspects to sex, yet we're told on the one hand that it's wrong, like you shouldn't do it ever, it's shameful, you can't enjoy it certainly, or women shouldn't enjoy it certainly. And then on the other side, we're like, oh, but yeah, but sex is so great and everybody's doing it, and it's this complete contrast that we're putting in people's brains that is making most people incredibly confused. On top of that, we're introducing young boys to porn younger and younger and younger. And I actually have a whole video where I dive into porn and all the unrealistic expectations that come along with that. I highly recommend you watch that video where I dive into that subject much deeper. But it does put very unrealistic expectations onto young boys about what sex is, what women are, what women want, what women should look like, what women should act like. We put this in young boys' brains. I mean, we're literally programming them at a young age, and there's so much research that shows boys who watch porn have a much higher increase in erectile dysfunction, because when they are actually with a real woman, it's not the same as when they're just watching a video. There's all kinds of evidence out there of how porn is actually screwing up young boys. It diminishes masculinity. It really does. Like, if you are a man, you're watching a lot of porn, it's probably massively diminishing your natural masculine energy. It's weakening you. There's even been studies that's lowering men's testosterone. Men's testosterone levels have never been lower in the history of our society. I don't think that porn is the only factor, but it absolutely is a factor. Like, I think that there's a lot of greater powers at work that are trying to weaken men and also weaken women as well in different ways. But, you know, that's a whole big topic that we can dive into on all of my, like, I could get my cute little conspiracy theory hat and put that on and whatever. But just talking about society and sexual energy, we introduce particularly young boys. I'm not saying this doesn't happen to young girls, it does. It happens on a much grander scale to young boys, and we screw up young boys in their vision of what sex actually is. That said, we also put young girls into this idea of shaming them, like sex is not for you, which porn really does teach boys as well, that sex is not for a woman, it's for a man. We kind of push women nowadays. I mean, I do think that there's the one side where you have sort of church, family, things like that, that very often tell young girls that sex is wrong, or sex is something that you only do for your husband, or you only do for a man, or something. Like, we disconnect women from their sexual energy themselves. But there's also this world out there where we tell women, no, you're empowered, you should be that Sex in the City woman that's sleeping around with a bunch of different guys because that's going to give you fulfillment. We literally condition women to think that promiscuity and sleeping around is actually going to fulfill them. And because as feminine beings, most women are feminine at their core, we're going to want to be filled. So we're going to look for that fullness in being filled by men. We may look for it in other areas. I mean, we could get into the idea of feminine being filled by food or in food addictions and things like that, a whole other topic. We kind of condition women to believe that promiscuity is the answer and that it's empowering and that it's, get into the whole topic. I know it's gonna be controversial. I mentioned this in another video. It was a bit controversial, but I'm still gonna say it. We convince women that there are a lot of things they can do to prevent the side effects of being promiscuous or the consequences of being promiscuous as being a good idea, pumping them full of, you know, hormonal birth control. I have videos talking about hormonal birth control and the side effects of that. I won't get into that, but most women, what they're taught about hormonal birth control barely scratches the surface of how damaging that can be to their bodies, because you're literally suppressing your body's natural function, which is to procreate. I know the topic of abortion is very controversial. I'm not going to dive into that too much here in this video, because that's not what my channel is, but we do teach women a lot that abortion is an easy solution to a problem, as if it's just some doctor that comes in, waves a magic wand, and it's like, oh, boom, you're not pregnant anymore. We don't actually tell women that, no, there are potential physical side effects. Even in the safest conditions, it's still a medical procedure that has potential side effects. That's putting aside the whole idea of human life. Whatever you believe about that, I'm setting that aside for right now, and I'm just talking about the actual side effects on the woman. We don't teach women that, I mean, the suicide rate of women who have had abortions is astronomical. Like, the physical and mental health ramifications of going through that is absolutely insane, and we don't tell women this information. We don't give women informed consent. We're so big in our society on consent, but we don't actually give people informed consent. So we teach women that, like, oh, you can be promiscuous, you can sleep around, because we have all these wonderful things that will you know, fix any problems that may occur with you being promiscuous. It feeds into the pharmaceutical industry. It feeds into, well, the medical community with, you know, procedures. And if you want to dive into the history of Planned Parenthood and things like that, I'm not going to dive into that in this video, because that's a whole dark topic that I just don't want to go into, but a lot of twisted stuff behind that. We convince women that this stuff is just an easy solution to a problem that they may have. We're not really focused all that much on sexually transmitted diseases, which affect women at a higher rate than they affect men. Don't really teach women about this stuff. And it's actually really interesting. One of the things, I believe I actually read this also in Esther Perel's book, we have this idea in our society in the United States, so to speak, that if we teach teenagers, children, sex education, if you give them the information, that they're automatically going to use it. When they've actually shown that in European countries, they have a much more in-depth sex education system. On average, teenagers have sex much later in life than they do in the United States with more information. And the rate of teen pregnancy is like, I think it's like a third of what it is in the United States. So giving people more information actually helps people make better choices. But in the United States, we don't really want people to make better choices, at least it seems like, because it benefits a lot of people when they don't. You get a lot of single mothers. What does it do? Well, it also weakens families if you get a lot of single mothers, because you don't have strong father figures raising children. Helps the welfare system. It, you know, it supports the medical community. You put girls on birth control to try to prevent them from pregnancy, but then when they do want to get pregnant, they have all kinds of medical side effects. Fertility in women in general, like overall, is abysmal. I mean, you see like really young girls who are, you know, married in relationships and trying to get pregnant who aren't getting pregnant. This kind of stuff is just rampant. Promiscuity in women, which is promoted to women as being this empowering thing. There was a study that showed that women, when they have one-night stands with a male partner, I think it's only like 14% or something are actually having an orgasm. And I understand, because I used that argument one time and all these women wanted to be like, well, the point of having sex isn't just to have an orgasm. You mean to tell me that men would be having one-night stands if they weren't having orgasms? No, of course they wouldn't. If women are not actually having that orgasmic experience, having this casual random sex with men, then why are they having it? Probably because just having sex is not what most women truly want. Are there some women who do want that? Yes. Most women are not going to be happy just having sex. Most women need more of an emotional connection with a man in order to enjoy a sexual experience. There's a lot of research studies out there that show that women who are in long-term relationships where safety is created are much more open sexually, because women need more than just a man showing up in order to open sexually. Now, are there a lot of relationships out there that are not sexually polarized? A lot of people are outside their natural core energies. They're not in like a great masculine feminine dynamic. I have a lot of videos talking more about those topics, so I'm not going to dive into that too much in this video. But yes, there are a lot of relationships where people are out of their natural core energies. You don't have great masculine feminine polarity in relationships, so a lot of marriages are falling into the trap of not being sexually active, and sometimes that does end up getting into straying and things like that. I'm not justifying that. That's not really where I'm going with this video, but healing those things in a relationship is going to be better in the long term than just assuming that being in a relationship long term is the problem. It's not being in a sexually polarized relationship that is the problem. And you can lose sexual polarity in a relationship after a week, after a month, after a year, after 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, does not matter. And you can have a sexually polarized relationship at any of those stages in time in a relationship. It's the sexual polarity that keeps the sex going and keeps it good, as opposed to how long you've been in a relationship. So this idea that people are like, no, one night stand is better than, you know, a long-term relationship. Well, for women, for sure, it's been tested that no, it's actually not better for women to be in short-term or just one-night stand relationships. Most women are not actually satisfied with that. Overall, you're seeing that over and over again. The idea that promiscuity for women is actually empowering is a really false statement. And I don't say any of this to support purity culture. I've got my cleavage going. I was a lingerie model on Instagram, so I'm not here to tell women that they need to be, you know, covered up, modest, hide their sexual energy, that, you know, they can't actually like own their sexuality. Women can own their sexuality and not be promiscuous and not sleep around with everybody. But we get this idea in our society that, well, okay, women are either sexually promiscuous or they're sexually repressed. There's a lot of area in between there where women can actually own and embrace their sexual energy but not be promiscuous. In the same way with men, there's more and more men, and I'm so happy to see this, that are actually rejecting porn culture, that are stepping into their masculinity, stepping into their full, true, healthy masculinity, and rejecting a lot of the promiscuous culture. It's one of the reasons why, even though I do agree sometimes with some of the things that somebody like Andrew Tate says, I don't agree with his overall message, because his overall message is about male promiscuity. Male promiscuity is not beneficial. I've talked about this in other videos, but if a man is sleeping around with a lot of different women, he is not protecting or providing for any of them. He's just not. Because the actual act of sleeping around with multiple women is not protecting any of those women. You're literally spreading anything you pick up from any of those women, or anything those women are picking up from somebody else, onto all of them. You're putting them all in a very vulnerable situation where if they get pregnant, if you get more than one woman pregnant, your finances are now split with multiple families. Your attention is split with multiple families. That's not beneficial to the growth of our society. We know that children grow up the best and have the best chance at life by having a healthy parental family unit. Having these men who are going around and sleeping with all these women and getting all these women pregnant, Nick Cannon, and you know, there's always gonna be some men. I know a lot of men want to use the argument that it's like, oh, men in history, wealthy, high-value men in history always had harems and stuff. Very few select men had them. There's always gonna be, you know, there has been in history, there will probably always will be certain men who end up having a lot of babies with a lot of different women. Does that mean that that's the best situation for someone to be in? No, it doesn't mean that. Overall, we've seen historically that when you have a healthy family unit, that's the best environment for a child to grow up in. And I really do believe that a lot of the stuff that's going on right now is really to break down the family unit. It's really to break down the natural masculine and feminine energies in people, in men and women. It's breaking down the sexual polarity in relationships. It's weakening men and making them more feminine. It's masculinizing, we'll go with that. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's my word now. Masculinizing women, and it's to separate the family. You can't keep a family together if you have a weak man. No matter how masculine and strong a woman is, she's still not a naturally masculine man. It's just not the way it works. Can women be protectors and providers? Yes. Is a woman being the best protector and provider she possibly can ever going to be as good as a man being the best protector and provider that he can? Probably not. Are there women out there who are better protectors and providers than some of the men out there? Yes, absolutely. But if you're talking about at their best, at their peak, men are better at that. And when we're sexually promiscuous, we give men the permission to not treat us very well, because at the end of the day, we don't want men to see us as a one-night stand. We don't want men to treat us like we're disposable. But if we're treating ourselves like we're disposable, we can't really expect men to treat us any better than that. I mean, should they? Yes, absolutely. And I really do believe that, you know, men need to be challenged. I know there's a lot of men out there who want to argue with me. Men need a challenge. They do. Comfort kills masculinity. Ease of life, it kills masculinity. Masculine men thrive in challenge. Men need a challenge. As a woman, you need to challenge him. Now, I don't mean by being a masculine partner and being just difficult for the sake of being difficult, but if you just give yourself to a man and don't say to him, hey, you know what? I need to know that if I get pregnant in this situation, that you're gonna protect and provide for my family. If you don't actually hold a man to a certain standard of saying, look, if I give you access to my body, I need to know that you're gonna be there to actually deal with the results of this situation, then men are not gonna step up. They're not gonna be the best that they can be, because I really do think that this easy sex, I mean, I've said this before, people argue with me all the time. If every woman, every single woman on the planet just said, I will not sleep with a guy unless he has a job, there would be no unemployment. There would not. Men would find work. Men would do the job. Now, should men be able to be motivated in order to live their purpose on their own? Yes, absolutely they should. But when you have a society where we're literally making things so easy for men, we're giving men the easiest access to sexual pleasure, nudity, porn that we ever have before, men are not gonna work for it. It's making men lazier. It absolutely is. As women, it's making us have to do all the work. If we show up and we say, hey, well, I'm gonna have sex with this man and I'm not gonna expect him to be a good man or stand up and provide for me or actually commit to me, men aren't gonna step up and do it. Should they? Yes, absolutely they should. Will they? Well, it doesn't seem like they are. So I hear a lot this idea of like, oh, well, could men survive without women, or could women survive without men? It was like, newsflash. If either men or women disappeared tomorrow, we would make no more people. We're all dinosaurs. Like, the human race will stop living. Like, it's done. Like, all that will be left is our fossils. Whatever species comes after us is gonna look at our fossils and be like, gee, these humans were really interesting. Like, we're gonna be in museums. Our hieroglyphics are gonna be memes and stuff. It's gonna be really bad. Why were they walking around with these little screens all the time? Like, that's so weird. Why were their necks all hunched over? It's like, well, they're all gonna be trying to figure out like what these humans were like. We're gonna be dinosaurs. I mean, men and women cannot survive without each other. And we need sex and we need sexual energy in order to survive. But we also need to own its value. We need to own the beauty of it, the sacredness of it. And that's part of the problem, is if we teach people that sex is wrong, or if we teach people that sex is to be commercialized, if it's just a commodity, if it doesn't have value to it, people aren't going to treat it like it has value. Sex is sacred. Sex is beautiful. Sex is something that we can all experience with someone that we love, with someone who we're sexually polarized to. We can create life with it. That said, I think it's really time that we treat it like the beautiful, sacred act that it is. That's why I believe as women, I'm not saying that women should be suppressing their sexual energy or cutting themselves off to it, or not actually seeing themselves as a beautiful sexual woman, whether they're in a relationship or out of a relationship. That said, part of being a beautiful feminine woman is valuing your body and not giving just anybody access to your body if that person has not proven that they're actually going to be a good partner for you, a good potential protector and provider for whatever the results of that sexual experience may happen to be. It's so important as a woman to own and value our own body, like own and value the power of our feminine body. If more women actually owned the beautiful power of our feminine body, we wouldn't just be giving random men access to it. On the flip side, as a man, I understand that men have a natural drive to ejaculate to continue on the species, but as a man, if you don't have any sexual discipline, if you're willing to just throw it out there and any woman that comes along, you're not trustable. Part of being a masculine leader, a masculine protector and provider, is being able to be trustable, is to be able to have discipline, to be able to show that you have self-control. Those are all masculine traits and very important masculine traits. And if you don't have sexual discipline as a man, you don't have discipline anywhere. If you are literally just willing to jump on any woman who lets you have sex with them, you're not going to be a trustable man, and you're not going to be a man who a woman is going to choose to be a long-term protector and provider for her family. And newsflash, if we don't heal those things, if we don't heal those aspects of ourselves, if women don't value the beautiful sacredness of their bodies and be selective over who they give that access to, and if men don't value their self-control and discipline and their actual masculine leadership and actually have that sexual discipline, they're not going to be trustable, and they're not actually going to be masculine leaders. If we don't have that, our society breaks down. I mean, it's happening now. Like, it's breaking down now. I just want to encourage people to really rethink everything that they're being taught now about sex and sexual activity. As women, like, understanding that you can find your own pleasure, you can tap into your own pleasure, explore your own body, value your own body. I have a video about all of my favorite pleasure tools from Yoni Pleasure Palace. I'll link that video to this one so you can check those out if you want. Cultivate your sexual energy, embrace your body, see your body as being beautiful and sexual. But that doesn't mean that you have to exploit it for commercial gain. That doesn't mean you have to have an OnlyFans account and you have to make money off of it. It doesn't mean you have to share that sexual energy with everybody, because in reality, not everyone deserves your sexual energy. Make sure that the person you share that with deserves it. As a man, get sexual discipline, learn discipline, because that shows your self-respect. As a masculine man, your deepest need is going to be for a woman to respect you. And if you as a man don't have sexual discipline, you don't have self-control, no woman is going to respect you. Women respect men with self-control and sexual discipline. This is just scratching the surface on a really complicated topic, and I'm sure that there's probably a lot of tangents I could have gone on, but I didn't want to make this video too incredibly long. If there's any of these topics or topics similar to this or anything you'd like me to expand on, more than happy to do another video about, you know, this topic or topics similar. Any thoughts or comments on this? Absolutely respectful comments only, but I'm always happy to have respectful discussions. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love your topic suggestions. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you're a woman who wants to connect to her feminine energy, I have online courses, details in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.